Good morning, Andy.
Hello. How are you feeling, Andy? You excited? You nervous?
I'm excited, to be honest. If you look at the form we're in at the moment, I think, look at De Bruyne, he's in such a rich vein of form. There's been a bit of talk about him maybe not being at the level, but at the moment he's on fire. Jack's on fire. And with Haaland, you've always got a chance in any game of football.
It's wild, isn't it? I was looking at the number of games that you've strung together and won, and everyone feels like they're clicking, whether or not Haaland's in the team or not. I think a lot was made about that, wasn't it? Whether or not he's in the team. Kind of also with De Bruyne being a little bit, I don't really know what was happening with that. Maybe not left out necessarily. It looked like he was a bit unhappy or a bit uncomfortable, but it's all sort of clicking at the right time. When you saw this draw and you got Bayern Munich, and it's quite a difficult side, isn't it? Were you like, oh, for God's sake? Or do you kind of feel confident you're going to get through it?
I was more confident before Tuchel went there because he's had sort of a bit of fortune against Pep in the past. But I still think, man for man, City shouldn't fear anyone in Europe. But it will be a tough game, especially in Munich.
I forgot about that. Tuchel, Pep. Do you remember Tuchel winning the Champions League against Pep?
I think the last time they played each other was 2014-15.
Who?
And I think Manchester City beat them 3-2.
Who? Wait, do you
I'm
mean
just
Bayern Munich City?
Yeah, Bayern Munich,
Yeah.
Etihad. So, do you expect goals in this game? It's, at the moment, Man City are flying, aren't they? I mean, Haaland, the goals he scored this season, I was never in doubt that Haaland would score loads of goals in the Premier League. There's no doubt about that because his frame, his pace, his goal-scoring ability was always there to be seen. But he's proved everybody right. For me, myself, he proved me right, saying, no, he's going to score loads of goals. He's been absolutely brilliant. So he could be the difference this year.
Yeah.
And that's what you need sometimes. You need someone who's going to be a difference to win a Champions League. And I'd be delighted if Man City win it because it'd be good for Pep Guardiola. And I quite like Man City, as long as they don't win the Premier League.
He also loves the goal in the Champions League, doesn't he, Erling Haaland? Bayern Munich at the moment, 2 points clear of the Bundesliga, Dortmund just behind them. So it's quite exciting over there as well. But how would these two match up? Let's ask someone in the know, because we are joined now on talkSPORT Breakfast by European football expert Kevin Hatchard. Good morning, Kevin.
Morning, Kevin.
Quietest I've ever heard, Kevin. Kevin, good morning. Let's try again.
Was he out with me
Good
last
morning.
night?
Hey,
Let's try again.
I was worried about you for a second, Kevin.
Vaguely waking up. So we got there in the end.
You've heard us attempt to preview this game, but as someone that knows a lot more about this, tell us about what sort of a challenge Bayern Munich are going to bring to the Etihad tonight for City.
Well, I think it's an interesting one because I think if you look at how it would have been a few weeks ago, it would have been very different because Julian Nagelsmann did a great job, I thought, against Paris Saint-Germain in the previous rounds. They managed to keep them at arm's length in Paris and won that first leg. And then I wondered if Kylian Mbappe would be able to bring things back in PSG's favour in the second leg, and it just didn't happen. Bayern have made their decision to bring Thomas Tuchel in. I think that's a mistake, not against Thomas Tuchel, who I think is brilliant, but I think Nagelsmann could have built something lasting there and something really quite interesting. So it's a different challenge. I think if they were expecting a big bounce when Tuchel arrived, that hasn't really happened. I was in Munich for the Klassiker, and yes, they won 4-2 against Borussia Dortmund, but I think that owed as much to Dortmund's failings really than Bayern being great, because Dortmund started that game ever so well. Their goalkeeper Gregor Kobel made a horrendous mistake, and once he'd made that, it was very, very difficult for Dortmund psychologically. Then Bayern went out of the DFB Pokal, which is the German Cup, at home to Freiburg, and they weren't particularly great against Freiburg in the league on Saturday. They went there, they won 1-0. Freiburg hit the post at 0-0. Jan Sommer, the Bayern goalkeeper, had to make a brilliant save to keep it at 1-0. So I still think Bayern have a huge amount of quality and they will test City, no question about it. But am I as confident as I would have been? I'm not sure I am. So I think Bayern can win it over two legs, no question. But there is still a little bit of uncertainty there at the moment.
Kevin, looking back at the Chelsea when they won the Champions League, obviously Tuchel was in charge of Chelsea. Will he look at that game and say, this is how we stop Man City winning that game? And will he do exactly the same for Bayern Munich and say, well, we might have to be a little more defensive-minded? play on the break, or will he be a totally different mindset?
So he said he won't. He said he hasn't mentioned that game to his players at all. He's not using that as a template. And it's interesting, there was a lot of talk about, because he used back three a lot of Chelsea, there was a lot of talk whether he'd do that with Bayern and use that kind of template, and he hasn't. He's played a back four. He's kind of alternated between formations, a 4-2-3-1, occasionally a 4-1-4-1, but it's not the same as what he was doing at Chelsea. And why would it be? Because he's got a completely different set of players. He's got some excellent players at Bayern. The goalkeeper Jan Sommer, I don't think has shown us exactly what he can do since arriving to replace Manuel Neuer after he got injured skiing and was ruled out for the rest of the season. Matthias de Ligt is starting to really be the leader Bayern thought he could be at the back. And I don't think they take as many risks defensively, Bayern under Tuchel, as they did under Julian Nagelsmann. So I think he'll have a plan for Erling Haaland. It's going to be very important that Upamecano and De Ligt play as well as they can to try and contain him. Still got world-class midfielders in Joshua Kimmich, Leon Goretzka, and they've got so much attacking talent. The interesting thing for me is how they deal with Eric Maxim Choupo-Moting being out injured. Now, you might think that's crazy because he obviously didn't pull up any trees at Stoke, but he's been brilliant for them this season, and he's been a really important reference point for them in attack. So it might be a bit more fluid up front without a genuine centre-forward.
Yeah. Could you give us a very quick preview of Benfica against Inter Milan as well? Because it's in Lisbon tonight. They lost their first match in, 12 games at the weekend, Benfica?
Yeah, they lost to Porto, and that's about as tough as it gets in Portugal. And Porto did what they do, which is to be very compact and very organised, and they played very well. So I don't think Benfica will be overly worried about that. They're still well clear at the top of the Primeira Liga. This is going to come down to who takes their chances, because Inter, if you look at them in Serie A, their form is awful, but one of the reasons it's awful is they keep missing chances. Romelu Lukaku missed a header from about 2 yards out at the weekend against Salernitana. Lautaro Martinez hasn't been clinical either. And so it's going to be about whether they can be ruthless in front of goal. So I think it's a fascinating game, and I can see why Benfica are favourites, because they've sparkled all the way through.
Excellent. Well, you sparkled as well, Kevin. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
Kevin.
That was fabulous. Fabulously informed. Enjoy the matches tonight, and we'll speak to you again very soon, Kevin. Thank you.
talkSPORT Breakfast with Laura Woods. Monday to Wednesday mornings 6 till 10. On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.